Yes.
Yes, Katie.
There we go. Over to you, Mary Dawn.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa. So, as introduced, my name is Mary Dawn Eggleton, and I am the Rural Mental Health Project Lead for the Rural Mental Health Network. We are a program within the Canadian Mental Health Association and Center for Suicide Prevention. So, we're just one kind of piece of that overall organization. Today, just some background history. When we started our network, or it actually started as a project in 2018, when we started up, one of the first partners we had was FCSS. And within that, we had many local FCSS offices come on board as backbone partners. Since then, just with changes, and we still have over 60% of our backbone partners are FCSS, but we find that now a lot of the FCSS offices or new managers and such don't know much about our program. So that was the opportunity we wanted to take today, was just to reintroduce the program, reintroduce where we've
Tracy, are you on this one? It's
not
an FCSS thing.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
what we've been doing, and then also where we're
I think I've
going.
taken it before though.
We are getting somebody who hasn't muted and we can hear your conversation.
Perfect. Okay, so today, as we go through this, if you have questions as we go along, please ask your questions at the time. Melissa's going to kind of watch for you guys to raise your hands, or in the chat as well. And please feel free to interrupt me. I want to make sure that this is not me speaking at you, but you guys also being able to get what information you need from this. So welcome everybody. So today's session is intended to build on that strong preventive and community wellness work that FCSS always does, and that you're already leading across rural Alberta. You know your communities, you know your relationships within them, and the realities that people are navigating every day. So rather than introducing an entirely new approach, the session is about exploring where there is that natural alignment and opportunities for partnership between the Rural Mental Health Network and FCSS, and around rural mental health and well-being. So to get together, we're going to look at the current mental health landscape in rural Alberta and explore how those realities intersect with FCSS mandates and the work that you're already doing, preventative social programming. We're going to discuss how upstream and community-led prevention approaches align closely with the strength-based and community development lens that FCSS offices already bring to their work. And we're going to talk about some of those dynamics that uniquely shape rural communities, including relationships and trust and stigma and those confidentiality concerns. When we talk about rural Alberta, we know that there are some really specific dynamics that are there that aren't in our urban centers. And then I'll introduce the Rural Mental Health Network and the community animator not model, including how animators support that community-led action, connection, and that local capacity building. And then we'll look at how FCSS offices can strengthen that. So by the end of this, we want to make sure that you have a clear understanding and the potential of next steps, and introducing how to actually join our network. Hold on. There we go. My computer seems to be a little slow today. Before getting into our topic, so I wanted to kind of discuss what the structure at CMHA is, because it's a structure that it's sometimes complicated. So for people to understand how the Rural Mental Health Network fits within CMHA and the Center for Suicide Prevention. So 2 years ago, Canadian Mental Health Association and the Center for Suicide Prevention amalgamated. So we also have a national division though. So the Canadian Mental Health Association Alberta amalgamated with the Center for Suicide Prevention, who is national. So it's a weird little mix of how we have come together. So we do have our CMHA national office, we have our CMHA Alberta office, but then we also have CMHA regional offices in our major centers here in Alberta. So it's this weird blend of all these different divisions, but CMHA Alberta blended with with CSP. So it's about building those mentally healthy communities, cultivating those healthy environments. We're really primarily focused on building programs and incubating them. However, then also sharing those programs with others so that they can then uh, use those programs in their communities or be able to take them on completely. So for example, we now are piloting a respite house in Calgary for those who are of suicide risk. And once we're done the pilot program, it'll be handed off to an organization to that's interested in being able to run it on their own. So that's so we're really about that incubation or being that community hub for community wellness. So we do it through convening and educating, a lot of incubating, funding, and then driving that system change. So before we talk about what the Rural Mental Health Network is doing, I'd like to talk about what is the challenge and the realities of our rural communities and what are they facing. And especially those who are working in rural Alberta, we know that the mental health challenges look different in small towns. And it's definitely not because our people are less resilient. It's because the context is different. I too am from small town. I grew up in Swan Hills my whole life. I live now in Black Falls. So went from oil field small town to agriculture small town. But the context is so much different than when living with our urban neighbors. We have the distance, we have stigma related to it, our limited services. There can be those confidentiality concerns and our seasonal pressures. And it all shapes how our people experience their well-being and how they are actually going to seek supports. But keeping in mind that this is definitely not about deficits. This is about understanding the environment so that we can build and truly find the fits that are for our local communities. It's about building on their strength, and we definitely come from it from a strength-based lens and a strength-based attitude. So we're definitely not looking at what they're missing. And we want to see what are all the wonderful things that have as a rural community. So I just want to ask you guys, if you invite you to the table for a moment to see what are some of the mental health gaps that you see that actually fall outside of maybe your current programming or things that those gaps that are in your communities that you're not able to maybe address or touch. Just jump right in.
Hi, it's Tracy here from Grimshaw, and I have my programmer Lindsay sitting with me,
Yep,
and she just wanted to share a few words as well.
sure.
I definitely agree with the stigma. Um, Having those open conversations will help decrease the stigma. And the more we talk about it, the more we're open about it, the more we can feel better about ourselves and our community.
Yeah.
Definitely.
For sure, right? And nothing helps when we keep it quiet and in the closet.
Exactly, exactly. But stigma is still out there.
100%. Yeah.
In the chat, someone mentioned affordability.
Yes. 100%, right? And especially as things get more and more expensive, we were just talking about this gas prices and just daily food and stuff like that, then often our mental well-being becomes a side project. And right? So especially if it's not affordable. Definitely. And all those things they shape our rural they shape our rural communities, and they shape whether or not supports are being had or
And
sought.
oh, sorry, Sherry in the chat said supportive housing options for people living with severe, persistent mental health issues.
Yeah, definitely. Which continues to be an ongoing concern, right? So for sure. No, I agree. And if our urban friends are struggling with it, then we definitely will be struggling with housing. So
Yeah, and someone else mentioned, Amanda mentioned affordable housing options too.
yep, definitely. So the reality of mental health in rural Alberta is that we are seeing those mental health challenges become more common. They are increasing. One of the leading causes of disability worldwide is depression, and it's outpacing many physical illnesses. So looking at our mental health and our mental well-being is important, and rural communities are feeling this just as deep, if not deeper. Part of that's why we've developed the Rural Mental Health Network, is to take that community-led approach that builds that local capacity and strengthens those mental well-being where people live, work, and connect. Small populations make it hard to sustain long-term in-person professionals. I remember growing up in Swan Hills, and we didn't have the same doctor 2 years in a row. It's and even now they don't even have a doctor. So you look at that, that's our physical health, which people can see and recognize. When we're talking about mental health and mental well-being, that's even harder to keep our mental health professionals in the community. They see a bigger paycheck, or they see more opportunity in urban, even though it's not always necessarily true. We also, um, rural mental health isn't as well taught in universities or colleges when they're getting their degrees and stuff. So there's no um, incentive or learning to go and be in rural Alberta to be able to start up their professions and stuff. So it's hard to have consistent and ongoing support, which is crucial for recovery and maintenance is being able to have that same person that you're not telling your story to several different times. Limited follow-ups. So often you may get your first appointment, but then just due to wait lists and queues and all those types of, and being in rural Alberta, then the follow-up time is a lot less or a lot more. And then we have poor long-term outcomes due to that. Parachuting in of experts. We have our urban friends, our organizations often send in experts to tell us what we need, to tell us what is best. And so they come in with good intentions, but they don't always really understand local context. And those programs don't always build the trust, or they don't last long enough. So they were great this year, but then next year they lose their funding. And so then their rural pieces are the first things that get taken off the board. So they don't last long enough to make an impact. I was teaching in a session here not long ago, and a young cowboy stood up and he goes, "I'd just like to have a counselor who understands what crop loss means." And I'm like, yeah, good point. Because if you haven't lived it, if you don't understand it, then how are you going to be able to help somebody who is struggling with it? Urban size one fits all solutions often miss out on those rural values and realities. The urban solutions don't always translate well to rural life. They can overlook the community history, the local values, and just those realities of social life there. Um, Rural residents tell us that they want approaches that recognize their unique strengths and challenges. They want people in their communities um, who are trained. They want people in their communities who understand who they are. They want one of them who are there to help and provide supports. So our focus is on the upstream prevention, which I also know FCSS talks about a lot, is that upstream prevention piece, focusing on addressing the circumstances that cause those people to struggle instead of waiting until they are struggling. So a lot of organizations and in our society in general, our supports are focused downriver in therapy, medication, helping people after they're already struggling. We really try to get upstream, up the river, and find out why are people falling in, what's going on, and being able to address those factors. We want to look at the causes and look at building our actual community capacities and building those communities so that they are so that they can find their own inner resiliency. They can build on their strengths to be able to figure out what supports they need the best. So what does make our rural communities so unique? So the first thing is our diverse rural livelihoods. So we have a mix of indigenous communities, our farming and ranching regions. We have oil and gas, we have forestry, we have tourism. Alberta is alive with all these things that some of the other provinces even don't have. Um, so when we look at all those different those rich diversity that we have, it's really hard to come in with a prescriptive this is what works everywhere because it won't. What's working in our oil and gas will not work in a tourism town. What works with farmers and ranchers may not work with our forestries. So we really have to look at what does each community need and how do we fill those gaps for each community, which in itself, if we were doing by ourselves, would be a huge job. But one of our founding beliefs is let's form partnerships. Let's build capacity within rather than looking at the outside and going in. Seasonal and environmental rhythms. So we look at our agricultural cycles, our very long winters, especially this winter that just, I heard there's snow again this weekend. Like, please, I think I've had enough. So we look at those long winters though, and it does impact on it. Our tourism and our hunting seasons, all of them shape the ability and the mobility and the how people access support. We know not to put our yearly conference on when during harvest because if we do, then all our local farmers and ranchers won't make it because of the agricultural cycles. We also know that during a long winter that we don't put our conference because travel will be affected. And some people, they become seasonally locked within their communities due to snow and the ability to travel. So all these types of things all play a factor. So when people look at it and they're like, oh, well, it's just summer, winter, it's not when that's your livelihood and that's what your community builds around is those seasonal environmental rhythms. We also look at the actual community dynamics. We have some very tight knit relationships, which often can support well-being. But on the flip side, they also can raise those confidentiality concerns. So we, especially from somebody who's come from a small town, you enjoy all the neighbors kind of coming together to help, to be able to be those supports, to be able to lift that hand when you need it. But with that, on the flip side is that everybody knows your business. So it becomes kind of a double-edged sword that way. I remember being a teenager and everybody knew when I was out in my dad's truck before my dad even knew I was out in my dad's truck. So it's just that's how it works in small communities. But then that raises that if I am struggling or if my family is struggling, who do I go to that it won't become town gossip type thing, right? So there is that stigma that Tracy was talking about and those tough it out mindsets and those things can delay help seeking. So being aware that also is a reality in our communities. Residents often rely on informal networks, so family, friends, clergy, teachers, coaches, all those informal things that's who they often rely on rather than actual professional networks. I do know too that FCSS offices are often the professional network that they'll rely on in some of these communities, that's what everybody is familiar with. FCSS is the one who is there when things happen, both good and bad. So workforce and industry impacts. So we look at especially in our oil field towns, we look at rotating shifts, the isolation, high pressure environments, and in these resource-based towns, and it all affects our mental wellness. Some of our highest rates of suicide come from middle-aged men who work in the oil fields. So it definitely, we look at those impacts coming from Black Falls, where 80% of our population, we talk about almost being single moms because their men all work in the oil patch. So we have all those the shift issues. We have high domestic violence as a result of it, the depression and all those things. So we need to make sure that building trust and maintaining that constant and that consistent presence in our communities, because that helps make those early help-seeking behaviors more likely. That really strengthens those belonging and those connections in that community-led care. The Rural Mental Health Project network is not about service delivery. It's about building those connections and those relationships and just building that capacity from within so that we can start having those conversations and increasing the well-being of each community. We do have a high Indigenous population in our province as well, in rural Alberta. It is, though, probably underrepresented within our network right now. So that is, we do have some really great groups that bring their Indigenous perspective. It's just a matter of we'd like to see more. So our Indigenous peoples across Alberta, they experience unique historical, social, and systemic factors that shape their mental wellness as well. And so we try to build on their cultural safety so that creating those spaces where the Indigenous community members feel respected and understood and they're safe to engage. We start with that relationship and that trust, and we honor their local knowledge. Again, it's not about parachuting in and telling them what they need. It's about them saying these are some of our gaps, and we would like supports in forming bridges over these gaps. It's important that we acknowledge their history. We understand those impacts of colonialism in residential schools and the ongoing systemic barriers that they continually experience. We try to really respect their community protocols, engaging with the elders and their knowledge keepers and their leadership appropriately. And we ensure that they have self-determination. So their support approaches are led by their communities and their community members, and definitely not imposed on them. So it's important that we're using trauma-informed, strength-based, and culture-grounded messaging, and we're prioritizing their confidentiality and their safety. So if this is some of the communities that you're working with, then we definitely we would like to include them and make sure that their voice is heard within our network as well. So what works within our rural communities? And so the rural communities, they actually already have the ingredients needed for strong mental health support. It's just helping them put those pieces together and training some of the key people that they already naturally go to be able to bring them together in a healthy way. So they often already have the trust and the relationships, and shared history are super powerful assets. Being able to sit down at the table where you can talk about the history of the community within, when you can talk about those memories, all those things can be those are the assets within our rural communities. What works best isn't complicated. It's just being present, being consistent, and listening first. And we need to meet people in the places where they already gather. And that's some of the things that we build on. And I'll kind of expand on that further here in a moment. So we know that messaging, timing, and cultural safety matter. And when the support feels local and familiar and respectful of those rural rhythms, then people are much more far likely to engage. When they feel that you're one of them, then they become much more open to talk and much more open to support and much more open then to participate. So rural mental health outreach in Alberta requires a nuanced and understanding of those community dynamics, that local culture, those trust building and relationship centered engagement. Many of our rural Alberta communities, whether they be from the Peace Country to Pincher Creek, they're characterized by strong informal networks. Those seasonal rhythms, again, that dictate availability and the deep-rooted values around independence and privacy. One thing we know is that our rural communities, they definitely want their independence and they definitely don't want to everybody to know their business. So understanding that context is what makes or breaks our community outreach. In many of these communities, outside resources can make a meaningful difference, and people can appreciate them when they're done well. So when we have specialized support like crisis response or clinical expertise and those training opportunities, however, when it comes to everyday supports, when it comes to the community deciding what outside supports come in and all those types of things, then those are always better received from within. So, and we know that local communities can't fill all the gaps alone. And so it is a matter of building that capacity and being able to then, when we need it, so like let's say in crisis response, then we can bring in outside, but for the most part, we're working from within. We also have to remember though, to name our pain points clearly. So when we have high turnover, short-term pilots, and programs that are developed with an urban mindset, that causes frustration within our communities. So they need consistent. They need to feel like that there is somebody who actually comes, who's actually partnering and who will actually be there. That's often, and when we are looking at building our community animator program, we look at building and partnering with people who actually live within the communities because presence matters so much. That effective outreach, it begins with actually showing up. So it's not, we don't start with program promotion, but it's starting with being at those agricultural fairs, those hockey games, the farmers markets, being able to go to the coffee chat. I think every Alberta A&W in Alberta has the old farmers who meet and have coffee chat in the morning. I don't know a single A&W where I can't find them there. So going there to their coffee chat and actually meeting them at where they're at in their everyday community spaces. Through those environments, we create those natural opportunities to build rapport and trust without pressure. And then what we hear consistently across Alberta is that trust is built through that genuine listening and that showing up regularly before we even start to offer solutions. And then working alongside those local leaders, whether they're assigned local leaders or whether they are local leaders who are just naturally have stood up. We also need to recognize those logistical realities. So limited transportation, the actual workforce turnover, is there service gaps? We need to adapt our initiatives to those local needs, whether it be through, let's say, mobile counseling, virtual supports, flexible scheduling, pop-up wellness activities, and then be able to actually reflect those realities of that rural life. Rural communities aren't asking for perfection. They just want respect, relationships, and responsiveness. They just want us to be where we say we're going to be when we're going to be there. So ultimately, our goal as an outside partner which we do consider ourselves at this point, is to complement and not replace the local strengths. So that's where our focus as the Rural Mental Health Network is about building those local strengths, complementing those local strengths, and helping them to become more stable and collaborative. And then that's where, through that stable, collaborative, and culturally aware, we see our impact go up. And the most effective outreach prioritizes that continuity, the listening first, and those community-led approaches. So how are we responding? So, like I said, in 2018, we started as the Rural Mental Health Project. In the last 2 years, we've changed our name to the Rural Mental Health Network because we're no longer a project. We've actually followed into a model now that is more of a sustainable model. And we are also building as a social impact network that is dictated is the wrong word, but it's an organically moving network that is controlled by its members, not by us. So that's why we've moved into the name of the network. So it was designed specifically for rural Alberta. It isn't a program where we parachute in. It's a framework that helps communities lead their own mental health initiatives. We focus on training local animators, strengthening networks, and supporting community-driven action. So this model is working because it's not prescriptive. Every community has different values, partnerships, and priorities, and we provide the tools, the training, and a network, but the community decides what makes sense for them. So, and we're not coming in to tell them with a prescriptive method that this is what you have to do. So we have sort of several different parts of our rural mental health network, and I'll definitely go into them a lot more in depth. But we have animator exchanges where they strengthen relationships and collaborate and engage in that collective learning. We have resources available for everybody. So those actual tangible tools, assets, and communications. We provide opportunities for people for leadership to lead and to make decisions. We offer time and space for support, reflection, and inspiration. Our main focus 100% is on connections. We are a connection building, relationship building network, and this won't work without connections and without focusing on relationships. So building those bridges across people, communities, and those initiatives. And then partnerships, this is why for today, for this webinar, is leveraging those existing supports so to improve access. So it's looking at how FCSS works so well hand in hand with the Rural Mental Health Network, and how can we strengthen those relationships and partnerships more. Our 5 basic principles that we look at everything with, so these are definitely our values, is that we're collaborative. We work together for shared goals. We know that communities thrive when they are collaborative, when they can involve all the diverse voices, when we share leadership. And that's definitely behind why we went to a social impact network, because it's collaborative. The leaders share leadership with each other, and the leaders are determined by the network itself. We're strength-based. We're always focusing on the strengths. Every community has their strengths and their assets, and those are the things that we want to build on. That's how we drive our positive action and strengthening those strength-based assets. So, and being able to build up their hope, their pride, and those community assets that they have. Developmental. So we want to see our communities grow. And so as our communities are growing, though, we're also growing all the time. So our model, even in the last year since I've been with the network, has changed so much. And it's through that evaluation from the communities, through suggestions, and us being flexible to realize that we have to grow and change to be able to meet the challenges as they arise with us. We do focus on whole community. So it's definitely about looking at what does the whole community need, looking at internally what those resources are, looking at how can we already build from within rather than taking a pocket and saying, okay, this is how we're going to fix this piece, but not the other pieces. And then everything that we look at, it's not about identifying those who have mental illness, those who are struggling. Everybody has mental health and everybody has physical health. And so we look at building that better mental health for everybody, that mental well-being for everybody, and ensuring that, again, we're not pocketing. Our programs include everybody. When our animators are working in our community, when the animators are working in the communities, they're working with everybody as well. And we may have certain activities like that. Maybe we've supported men's shed, but often men's shed, if women want to attend, women can attend as well. Or they do a complementary women's programming at the same time. So, and we look at those options as well. So our goals, we have two main goals. We want to support local action. We want to support and inspire those collaborative strength-based action plans that actually specifically advance that community mental health. And then we also are looking at our provincial level support. How can we improve that overall coordination and collaboration across rural Alberta? So we do that through three main streams. So the first one is training community animators. So we're building that rural capacity, and I'll talk a little bit more about what a community animator is and their training. We also have the social impact network itself that it's our platform. It's for collective learning and support. It's where everybody gathers. At the end of this, I'll put up a QR code if you also wish to join the Rural Mental Health Network. And then we also have a community grants stream. So once animators are trained and going back into the community and have completed capacity or community action plans, then we can look at, we have a small stream for community grants, and we can look at so that they can implement some of their ideas, they can pilot them, and then they can also start to grow them. So our community animator journey. So our community animators in our communities are those discussion breeders. They're the ones who bring people together. They're connectors. They are trying to bring the people in the community together to start to have these conversations, and then they also help build out what the community action plan might be. So if somebody is interested in community animators are volunteer. Some of the ones we have are FCSS or organization. They're hired by organizations, and then they take the community animator training as part of their job. Some people work it off the side of their desk. Some people are 100% volunteers. So everybody kind of varies in how they decide they want to be a community animator. So their first part of the community animator journey is to join the Rural Mental Health Network. And so at the end, like I said, I'll show you a QR code. Otherwise, you can go to our website, the Rural Mental Health Network website, and from there, it'll direct you on how to join the network. Once you're in the network, you become a network supporter, and then you'll be able to see when we offer trainings. You'll be able to see, like, so for Mental Health Week this year, we had people convene in this space, and we provided different types of resources. Like we had bookmarks and then ideas to do with the bookmarks, and then we had a community bingo that people could participate in. So different types of resources and ideas and activities for Mental Health Week. And then, so if they've been a network supporter, they've kind of checked out the network, they've become participatory, they're talking to other people and stuff, then they decide I'd like to be a community animator. So then they can apply through the network to be a community animator. They then participate in training. It's 3 online modules and 4 full-day Zoom trainings, usually on a Wednesday. We're looking at, though, if we can change that. We do offer the training 3 times a year, and we're looking at maybe modifying one of the trainings of the year to suit people who can only do evenings and stuff like that. So that's some of the things that we're in talk right now. But they do the 7 modules. They are in a cohort with 15 other people. So the training takes place over a month, and within that time, they get to know their cohort, they get to talk about their communities, they get to talk about the different challenges that they have. So it's nice to have that connection in those relationships right in training. They then receive their certificate. And then within the network, they become a community animator. So they move from network supporter to community animator. Once they have completed their animator training, if they are a new animator in their community, or if somebody hasn't been trained for at least 2 years, then they will be eligible to receive community discovery funding. So what that is it's $2,000 to go back to their communities to start discovery work, to be able to have those conversations in their community, to start to figure out where the gaps are. And these are often very informal. They can be as informal as coffee chats at the coffee house, or having a lunch and learn, or having an evening town hall to discuss what are some of the mental health gaps or mental well-being. What are the strengths? Let's talk about what is already working well here and how do we make it work better. So they start that community discovery work, and then within that, they build an action team. The important part is a community animator is not the only one driving what's going on in the communities. They actually have a full action team. And that's to prevent burnout of our animators, but it's also to make sure that when the community action plan is being created, it's actually being created with the whole community in mind, because we have an action team that's voicing opinions for everybody. So we build an action team, and then they create a community action plan, how that might look. After creating the community action plan, they are eligible to start applying for grants. So this whole animator journey, the beginning of it, right through community discovery funding and everything, takes about a year to 18 months before they can then start to become eligible to apply for the community grants. And the community grants open in end of October. So why does this training matter? What is it important about it? Is it helps us move through the whole process of discovering what can we learn, being curious about our communities, what is it that we need, what is it that will help my community thrive, to going through to developing what needs to be done, developing our action teams, being able to actually have boots on the ground to take what we're learning to developing something, then using that action team to design something. What is our community action plan? How will we actually do this? So what can we learn? What needs to be done? How will we do it? Using that action team and then also our community, let's go, let's do it, let's build it, let's do something. And then evaluating and debriefing. What happened? Did it work? Was it the goal that we wanted? Who attended? Did we receive our outcomes? And then starting back again at discovering, okay, so what now can we learn? If we worked on this piece and now this piece is really solid and going, now what can we do? And continually working through that, learning to build that trust, learning to build those relationships. And the more and more you continue to organize and implement local action and then set new goals, then the stronger and stronger our communities become, and the more focused on those, what exactly that community and well-being it becomes. One thing our training is not, it's not a one size fits all. So if somebody's coming into our training looking for us to say, okay, this is what you need to do, we don't do that. It's definitely about them going back and discovering what needs to be done. And that's that curiosity and learning about their communities. Typically, if somebody comes into our training, sometimes people come into our training, they already have the project, so they've already done the design, and then they want to come into our training so that they can receive grant funding eventually to implement their design. We find it usually doesn't work as well because they're already coming in, they already have an idea of what they want to do. They miss those pieces of discovery, they miss those pieces of developing that action team. So it is important that they do that discovery work, and they do take time. Sometimes though, people have already done that before they become animators, and that's okay. And that's how they got to their design. But sometimes we have people who just come in with design because they think that that's what's best and what their community needs. And often, if it's that it can fall flat if it's not what the community wants, because then the community doesn't get behind it. Animators are not crisis responders, they're not service navigators. Their role is just to bring people together and support those community-driven solutions. So it is important that crisis response and clinical services stay with those organizations that specialize in them. And we don't parachute outsiders into the communities. So animators must live in or they must work in the and have an existing relationship in the community. So they're local people, not external consultants, because we're not parachuting in as one of our primary principles. So it's all driven from within. So when we talk about our platform, our network, it is our resource. So we're currently using the Mighty Networks platform. This is kind of what what it would look like if you were to go in and see kind of our network map. This was quite a few months ago. But this is how you can see how you connect with people. You can see how you can, the interesting thing is you can go in on the network and you can put, let's say you wanted to focus on, you were looking for somebody who was really good at giving speeches or presentations or something. You can go in there, um, you can put that you're looking for somebody with presentation skills, and then it'll pop up those people who have presentation skills. Or let's say you're looking for somebody within the network who can come and teach you moccasin making. Then you can put the question out there. Is there anybody who would come to my community? We're really looking at building in some more cultural aspects, and then you'll have people who can connect with you who are already within the network to be able to do that with you. These people are continually sharing their ideas, their tools, their challenges. They ask questions, and then they share their practical experiences from their communities. So it's definitely not a static resource library. It's an everyday evolving space that's shaped by the people who are participating in it. As a social impact network, the leaders naturally arise from in it. It's not something that, like right now, because it's a new kind of a baby and infant network, we're definitely driving the questions and stuff. But the goal ultimately of a social impact network is that it drives itself. It is its own living, evolving space. One of our strengths of the network is that it connects people across rural Alberta who might otherwise never cross paths. So whether someone is working in a small or agricultural town or a northern committee or a region with limited access to services, it helps bridge the geographic distance and creates those opportunities for rural communities to learn from one another. So we have people from the deep south, we have people from the far, far north, like flying communities. So the fact that they are so far apart, they probably would, unless you're with the same organization, you normally don't connect. So it's that opportunity for them to be able to connect and to learn, to share those resources. As for FCSS managers or for FCSS, it provides a practical space to be able to start to share those community strategies, maybe ask questions, see what kind of mental health resources that we have. We do have a resource library connected with the network. and connecting those community animators and peers across Alberta. It creates those opportunities for that collaboration around prevention, outreach, engagement, and community capacity building in ways that reflect our rural realities. So it's not just about accessing resources, it's about building those relationships, having those conversations. Our network does meet in person once a year, kind of like at our conference. It's called the Provincial Exchange, and that's where our network all comes together and shares what they've learned during the year. This year, all our speakers are Provincial Exchange. Our theme is connection, and all our speakers at our Provincial Exchange this year are our community animators. So they're all bringing their own tools and their own toolboxes to the table so that we can learn from each other. Which we thought it's what our network was asking for, and it's important for them to be able to experience the strengths of one another. So we currently have 325 animators across 164 rural communities. And with every animator comes a backbone organization. Those are our fiscal agents. And each community animator needs a fiscal agent, and 60% of our backbone organizations right now are FCSS. So we definitely do have a strong connection with FCSS currently. We just would like to build that more and build those partnerships more, and see what else we can do as we're moving into as a network. Our network is growing really quickly every day, we find. So we kind of say that we're moving into this new almost generation of it. So as it's growing, we definitely would like to strengthen those partnerships with our FCSS partners. Some of our stronger successes in Hinton, they've had 5 years of grant support now. And one thing with our grants is we don't grant fund for the same project. We want to see growth. We want to see, and this year we're going to be actually be looking at more sustainability in their granting projects. So for example, even though Hinton has had 5 years of grants, they've done something different every year, or they've grown on the last year's to the next year's. So the first year was they focused strongly on exploration and resource development. Since then, they've done suicide prevention and focused in on transportation and the movement of the community and being able to get around and being able to access their local resources. And then this year was a strong focus on community mental health, and they had the high neighbor packages where neighbors could receive a free package to give to another neighbor who then could get a package to give to another way. So it was just finding those people who to connect and start to build those relationships within Hinton. Strathmore started with a very, very small grant, like $600, and they have built this whole fiber arts community that has been sustainable and has grown into more groups and has actually grown into the high schools now. So they have used very little funds, but the whole thought of building that community capacity and that community development lens, and to focus on their strengths. In High River, our animator in High River, she has a whole program called Viva la Vida now. She works with the Spanish and the immigration and the newcomer community about promoting mental well-being in those community-based programs. Often they're in a Spanish language or in different newcomer languages. She has been promoting women's health lately. She has a menopause cooking circle. They've been working through often the newcomer community is preyed upon with technology scams. So she works with them through those things. And her program has actually been recognized by the Mexican consulate, and they want to take it across Canada. So it's just about building those pieces. She looked at what did they need in their community, what was their community asking for, building her action team, and then ensuring that when they built their community action plan, that it was what her community needed. So we look at the FCSS mandate and we look at it with how it aligns with the RMH project. So FCSS mandate being for those preventative social programs, we are training animators to do that upstream mental health prevention in their own communities. FCSS looks at community capacity building. That's our foundational, is building those capacities from within, being able to train those local animators who live and work in their own communities. FCSS mandate being local decision making. We leave all the decision making at the local level. They build their own community action plans. They follow through with their own community grants if they wish. And that funding follows those action plans, and those communities are deciding what works best for them. So as FCSS, what are some of the next steps that you can take? You can join our Rural Mental Health Network as an FCSS partner. You can look and nominate or support a community animator from your community. You can connect with those existing animators in your region via our interactive map. So on both on our platform, you can see the communities and then you can connect the animators through that. Or on our website, we have an interactive map that you can connect through your local community if you have a community animator in your community already. If you're not sure, if you can't see where you have a community animator, you can always contact me and I can look and see if you have an active community animator. Over the years, we have had some animators that aren't active anymore. Either they've moved away or they're just doing different things in their communities. So it could be likely that you don't have an active community animator already in your community. So you can attend an upcoming animator training. We also have network trainings that we have. So as a network supporter, there'll be trainings that'll be open to you as well. We just ran facilitation training. It was a 4 week workshop, um, 1 4 day workshop. So yeah, we just ran that, and then we're doing some learning series and stuff for the summer. So there's all those opportunities. So here is our QR code for the network. As we wrap up today's conversation, I just want to leave you with a few key thoughts and then definitely take any questions if there's any questions. Everything we talked about today comes back to one core idea. Rural communities already have those strengths that they need to support mental well-being. Our role is to simply create the conditions where those strengths can shine. So when people feel connected and supported and understood, they thrive. And that's something that rural communities do incredibly well. We know that they have the ability to thrive and survive and be resilient. And those relationships, the shared history and the way people show up for one another, those are those powerful foundations for mental health. So I encourage you to reach out and discuss how the animator model can complement your FCSS programming. And together we can build those healthier, more connected rural communities, one relationship at a time. So thank you. Any questions?
Jody has one in the chat. She said, as partnerships are part of the network model, are you working with AgWell Alberta?
Yes. So both Agwell and Do More Ag, we sit on both their communities of practice. So we make sure that we have those conversations with them as well, as much as I think we have 2, maybe 3 animators who are connected specifically with Agwell. So
If you don't feel like typing, you can also just unmute and ask a
yeah.
question.
Hello.
Hello.
So we're Tracy and Lindsay from Grimshaw, and we are going to be having this wonderful event. It's called Conversations and Connections Wellness Evening in recognition of Mental Health Awareness Month.
Nice.
And it's basically just a very welcoming area where you can come and you can talk about what's going on, reduce the stigma, get it out there. But I'm very excited about this. And we're also going to have some people come in like Pure Life. Sydney, she's a nutritionist and a personal trainer because we all know that that plays a part in our wellness or mental wellness as well. So we're hoping that everything's going to be so great, and I can't wait to just talk to people and see what's happening. We
That's
also
awesome.
have the Resource Center for Suicide Prevention coming in with us as well. So this is going to be great.
Yeah. Well, that sounds awesome. Yeah, it sounds like it'd be a great, and that's kind of the heart of it, right? Is having those conversations and
Yes.
just it doesn't have to be formal. It's just let's just sit down and let's just put it out on the table because if it's not on the table, we can't address it, right?
Well,
So,
that's the thing. And stigma kind of thrives off of misinformation and fear.
yeah.
So let's reduce that and help.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Here,
Any other comments or
looks
questions?
like Darren has their hand up.
Oh, sorry.
Mm, nope. Okay.
So I do have one before we go, and if it's a little more specific, I don't want to derail everyone, so I'm happy to just reach out by email afterwards. This is Cheryl. I'm a little outside the loop here. I've, not being directly involved with FCSS, but I saw the opportunity to learn more about what you do yesterday and jumped on it when it popped up on my LinkedIn. So, but
For
my
sure.
question is just, I'm with Roots of Empathy, and so for us as an organization, just looking to kind of share information about who we are and what we do with community animators and just with people across the province, what would joining the network look like for us? Can you do that as just an information sharing? Is that process different? What would you suggest in that regard?
It could again, so I've had strong ties with Roots of Empathy when I used to do bullying consulting and stuff. So definitely joining the network as supporters. And if you have a person who wants to come forward and start to have those conversations and would like to be a community animator, more than welcome. We have backbone agencies from all over. Sometimes and then specifically like if as Roots of Empathy as an organization, if you have somebody who would like to be in the network, just to be able to provide that information on what you're programming, what supports you can provide within communities as well. It's your opportunity to be able to network and provide that information about what supports you provide for rural Alberta, right? So definitely all around supporters, the potential for there to be animation and then also being able to be a backbone organization if that is what your role, if what you wish to be. So
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
yeah, definitely.
Hi, this is Shelley. I just have a quick question, just about when it comes to the training with the animators. Is there an expectation that they do engage um, I guess the broader community or like reach out to their FCSSs and connect, um,
We
or or not?
we would hope that they would reach out to the FCSS because that's part of the community, and FCSS often has that lens. Uh, I guess comes down to the animators when they're doing their discovery work. If they've built an action team and they've built that community voice, then to me in my heart it says yes. FCSS should, that's one of the natural resources and supports of the community. I would want them at the table. Um, And does that always happen? Probably not. It should most of the time. I do know we have some people who are from other organizations who work this as part of their job, and they probably don't reach out to FCSS as much as they should. So they might not be
Even
having.
if it's not FCSSs, I guess other organizations
Yeah,
that are doing some similar work of sort of thing.
definitely. And they should all be a part of the advisory team, right? Because if they're doing similar stuff, then that's probably not a gap in the community that is there for us to be filling, right? So we don't want, the whole goal is not to repeat work that's already being done. So for example, we had somebody apply for community grants this year who wanted um youth funding for youth to attend program like sports programs and stuff, but their community had a strong FCSS program that provided funds for underprivileged youth to be able to attend programming. So we didn't fund that as a grant because there's already the program in their community. So
Okay.
did that answer your
Yeah, I would
question?
just yeah, I think yeah, just encourage that to happen because I think we've had
Sure.
I only know about projects that are funded through the community animator by going to the website, not from
Mm,
being involved. And so just encourage that, I guess, is that just so that that duplication doesn't happen, or because I think it has a really nice handle, a mental health animator. So when they're out in the community saying that,
yep.
it can seem like it's a really big role.
Yeah.
And then if other groups aren't included or we're not aware of those projects, it can cause some confusion in the community. So
100%. Yeah. No, exactly. Right. And the essence of it is that, yeah, this is of a community that should be coming together. Right. And it's not about one person or even one small team dictating what a community needs. It's about a community coming together to talk about what they need. So, yeah.
Excellent. No more questions. Okay, well, Mary Dawn, thank you very much for all of the wonderful information today. We will share the link to the recording once I get it ready. If you don't receive it, please let us know because we share it with our membership. So sometimes if you're not on our membership list, you may not directly get it. So let me know if you need it. Yeah, thank you very much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.